So you may have one or two guides that are with you from birth to death because they are part of your journey and they're here to support you through every bit of it. But we also have guides that come and go just as we need them and as we call to them. Everything in this universe works according to the law of attraction, right? The idea that like energy attracts like energy, and your thoughts and your intentions are energy. Your guides work on that wave of the law of attraction for reals. If you have a interest, you have a need, you have a curiosity, right? And they hear you and they come to you and they're here to support you, sometimes so much behind the scenes that you don't even know that they're there. So, hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I'm your host, intuitive counselor, and spiritual guide, Victoria Shaw. And today we're trying something different on the podcast. First of all, some of you may be watching this on video because I'm playing around with recording some of the episodes to be shown on YouTube. But also today, the format's a little bit different because I'm trying something new. So I had the opportunity last week to be at the Conscious Life Expo in LA. And if anyone is local or even not so local, this one would probably even be worth traveling for. The Conscious Life Expo is like this huge kind of event with people have booths and tables selling crystals, offering intuitive readings, Akashic Records readings, sharing about their intuitive publishing companies. And then there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of speakers on all sorts of topic. And yours truly had the opportunity to speak about how to connect with your spirit guides. I think we called it Meet Your Spirit Guides. And it was so much fun. And you all know how much I love to teach because you've been following this podcast and you listen to me doing it all the time. But it's also really fun to teach to a really large group. And that's what I got to do. So it was just a joyous weekend for me and so fun to be in that energy. And I'm just so grateful. And one of the things that I do when I do these group readings, and I've been traveling a lot with a soul search too. So if you're in Arizona or the Bay Area, I will be in those places again really soon. If you want to come see me teach live or get a live reading, and you're not in the San Diego area. And I think we're going to be coming to New York soon too. So I hope my fingers are crossed for that one. And, I also always spend a couple of weeks in Connecticut. Probably this year I'm coming in June. So I'll be seeing clients there and maybe even a few in New York City if I can make that flow. So anyhow, but so what I do when I teach at these events, or at least what I've been doing recently, is I do a little meet your spirit guides or messages from your spirit guides. And this one was a meet your spirit guide. So I talked a little bit with a little bit of Q&A about spirit guides, how they work, how we can connect with them, all the things that we talk about pretty much all the time on intuitive connection. And then I opened it up to audience questions. And what I do, and those of you who are watching this in video form can see, I get everybody to put their little questions on index cards and then drop them in a box or a container or a vessel, depending if I'm traveling. I was driving on this one, so I had this fun little box. But sometimes when I am have to take the plane, it's a little bit different. But anyhow, so everybody writes down their questions and then I tune in and I'll answer some questions to the audience. And a lot of times people will ask me personal questions. But for this group, a lot of the people ask me just basic questions about spirit guides. And the talks are only 45 minutes, my friends. So I'm very fast, but I probably got to like 6 people. And there are probably like 85, 90 people in that room. So I did not get to everyone. So I wanted to take some of the questions that I got at Conscious Life Expo and read them to you now and see if we can get some answers, because some of them were really good questions and they were all really good questions, but some of them were exceptionally good questions that I think a lot of listeners also would resonate with. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to shuffle these because I just can't make a decision of where to start. Okay, so this person asks, and I won't use their name here, but are there, and this was one I got a lot, are there more than one spirit guide? And how can I find out who they are? And I got this question a lot. A lot of people are asking me, how many spirit guides do we have? And, how do we know who they are? So I want to tune in and get this answer from the guides. And I did answer it in the room, but I'm going to answer it again here because so many people wanted to know that one. And the answer is you have as many guides as you need. You have as many guides as you need. And it can be as few as one or as many as 1,000, right? It's because you are, and the guides also say numbers are kind of irrelevant on the other side, right? That's a very human way of understanding things. And we want to know who they are, how they are, what they are, and, numbers, quantity. But you have to understand a couple of things. Number one, even something that presents to us as an individuated identity may be part of a soul group or a larger energy, right? And that they're just the front face for it. I think Abraham Hicks is an example of that. Abraham, channeled by Esther Hicks, who I talk about a lot on the show. I believe, if I am remembering correctly, Abraham identifies as a group energy. My primary guide that I work with always speaks to me as if he is from a collective energy. So he is the personality focal point for me to connect with. But he is part of a soul group and is often the entire soul group that I'm working with. So this is just a little reason why numbers are not super relevant when we're talking about spiritual things, because a lot of that has to do with the way we understand things on this side of the veil in this realm, and they may not be as relevant on the other side. But the guides say when we're asking this question, oftentimes what we really want to know is how much support is available to us? Is there a limit? And the answer to that question is absolutely no. You can really request support on anything that you desire. Again, your guides can't do it for you. They will point you towards your own steps and your own answers, but you're here on earth and you have free will. So, making those steps is always on you, but they can support you in pretty much anything that you desire, and they're there for you, right? And, the guides say, yeah, sure, there are lower level energies that will support you in anything, right? But we're not really talking about that. We're talking about our highest spiritual guides that really have our highest and truest intention in mind and are responding to that, right? But there's really energies that can support you in anything if you want to go in that direction. But I know many of you are probably not resonant with that. So we have as many guides as we need. They come and go. So you may have one or two guides that are with you from birth to death because they are part of your journey and they're here to support you through every bit of it. But we also have guides that come and go just as we need them and as we call to them. And, everything in this universe works according to the law of attraction, right? The idea that like energy attracts like energy, and your thoughts and your intentions are energy. You've heard me say this before. So your guides work on that wave of the law of attraction for reals. So if you have an interest, you have a need, you have a curiosity, right? And they hear you and they come to you and they're here to support you, sometimes so much behind the scenes that you don't even know that they're there. But of course, it's way more fun when we do know that they're there so that we can play and work with them more intentionally. Okay. The other thing I want to say about this question before I choose another one is that they're really not your guides, right? Just like, your husband or your wife isn't really they are in relation to you, right? Well, that's a terrible example because your husband and your wife, most of us think about monogamy. So we think about my husband is only my husband, right? So, right. But your guides are not like that. They're not like that, right? Your guides can be working with multiple people at once. They're not limited by space or time the way we are here. And their allegiance to you and they love you, but their love is unconditional and it's quite expansive. So you may have a guide that is working with you, from birth to death, but also working with others as well, right? And oftentimes, too, I say the guides because they're simply here to support all of us, right? And when we have a particular curiosity or particular need, we'll attract in energies resonant to that, right? We don't own them, right? It's not like my guides are better than your guides, but it's just a matter of we bring in the energy that serves us. And I'm being prompted to say as well that, a lot of times when you are tuning into the energy of a spiritual teacher, like Esther Hicks, like Paul Selig, right? like, oh, what's the other guy's name? Lee Harris. They all channel different energies, right? I found, especially with Abraham, right? I feel very resonant with that energy now. And sometimes I feel like I don't need Esther's lips if I have a question for Abraham. So I want you guys to know that too, because where you feel a resonance with a particular energy, and this is not ego, right? This is not like, ooh, I can channel Abraham too. Believe me, I've seen Esther work. She is amazing. She is like one of the best channelers of our time. So I'm not touching that. But what I am saying is that, even Abraham does not belong to Esther Hicks, right? It's the guy that she has agreed to work with in this lifetime. And the synchronicity and the connection they have and the work that they do together is just beautiful and ginormous and such a service to humanity. And yet each and every one of us can access that energy, right? If it's resonant to us and if we want to. Okay. And, it may come to us in a different way or a different form, and we may not be as clear and direct channels as Esther is for that energy, but the guides say, or maybe we will, right? We will never know. But just know that our guides do not belong to us and we do not belong to them. Okay. All right. I'm going to get another question. All right. Another person asked me, I've been told many times that I'm surrounded by many angels. Are these my guides? The answer to that question is yes. Absolutely. Yes. When I feel into the energy of this person and some of you tuning in, the angelic energy feels so resonant and so wonderful and so beautiful that if you resonate with that, you go. And that doesn't mean that you're only, connected to angelic energy. And again, these guides, the way that I see it, are just the names that we give them. Some people say angels are guides that have never incarnated and spirit guides have incarnated. I don't care about any of that. But if that difference resonates with you, that's fine. But I do feel a great resonance when I feel the energy of angels, right? Because that energy has been with us throughout time, and there's so much beautiful teaching on it. And they feel so loving and lovely. And even now, as I tune in, I can hear them sing. Oh, it's beautiful. Right. And so if you feel that resonance, then go for the angel guides, right? Do what resonates with you. And of course, our spirit guides can be angels. They can be deities like Jesus or Kuan Yin or Buddha back there or Ganesha on my other side, right? They can be animal friends that, play with us often, right? There's a lot of traditions of spirit animals. For me, my beautiful raptors, my hawks and my eagles and my ospreys. Oh my goodness, right? And my snakes more recently, right? These animals that, we work with their energy a lot, and they really speak to us and we feel a strong connection with them. Those can be our spirit guides. Our deceased loved ones can to some degree be our spirit guides too, especially the ones that you feel a strong resonance with. Okay. So I wouldn't say that every deceased loved one is guiding you, though every deceased loved one loves you and is supporting you and is rooting for you and is giving you their love from the other side, because that love bond that brought you together in this lifetime, even if it didn't feel completely loving here, it was, that love bond never goes away. And they are totally, totally, totally loving the pants off of you from the other side. They can't not. But I also feel that sometimes our loved ones are powerful guides, especially when we have a very strong connection with them. And they may not necessarily be wiser than us, like some spirit guides have trained, my understanding is, for the opportunity to support us on this human journey. And our deceased loved ones probably don't fit that role. But I know for me, my sweet grandfather and I have had a beautiful relationship since he crossed over when I was 9 years old. And he's always been in my life. And I know at times that I have connected with him in my own work and that it has been healing for him, right? On the other side. And I think I've talked about this before on the show, but I also find other times when I have seen connections that I've had with him in other bodies or things that we learned together where I feel like he is guiding and supporting me. And I also feel like he guided and supported me in my lifetime, right? Because sometimes we do that to people in our world. I'm going to move these so they don't flip around. Right. I'm thinking too of my beautiful deceased English teacher who I was very close with. And when he crossed over, one of the things that he did for me, and this was channeled through one of my other mentors, but I felt it and it really helped, is he invited me to write a list of statements about myself from him, like to receive. So I was receiving them, and they were lovely statements to help me move into my self-confidence, right? Like, you are amazing, you are beautiful, you are, and he gave me, I think it was like 50, or I can't remember, 30. It was like a lot of them. And each day I received a new one from him. And I feel his energy right here, right now. And it really helped me to step even more into my power, because in this human body, he was a teacher and a person that really believed in me. And he was someone who really saw me and really made me feel like really powerful, being really gifted and intelligent. He was definitely one of the first. He was the teacher that I first started channeling when I was writing papers for his class. I didn't know I was doing it then, but I do now, and he does too now. And and then we had another human connection where he wrote something very kind and encouraging in my yearbook. And throughout my life, when I was questioning or doubting myself and my abilities, I would always go back and read what he wrote. So what a beautiful gift for him to give me from the other side, more of that love. Right. And so our deceased loved ones can be guiding us and do that for us as well. And thank you, John. Mwah. I love you. I'm grateful for you. So, guides can come to us in many forms, and angels are among them. And again, I think it's more important that we notice how we feel, how the guides make us feel, right? How the knowing of that makes us feel, what comes to us, how they present to us, rather than the getting in our head over much about how we think it should be. Right? Because if it feels good to you and if it's improving your life, then it's probably resonant and it's probably just right for you. And we all have very different experiences with our guides. Okay. So another person asked, what's my guide's name? Okay. And some of you may or may not know, but one of the fun things that I'm doing right now, and you can find this on my website, victoriashawintuitive.com, is I am receiving and connecting people with their spirit guide. So it's a very low, I just wanted to offer like a fun, low cost option to connect with me. And so you basically buy this option, and then I tune into your energy. And I actually send this to you in an email. So I'll send you like, this is your spirit guide, or this is one of your spirit guides, and this is a message from them. And I'm getting all sorts of cool things, from animals to famous people to just random guides with random names and beautiful messages. So it's been so much fun to do so far. So I'm going to keep doing it for a little while. But the thing is that I always think that the name of the guide is mostly for you. It's mostly for you. And years ago, or not years ago, actually, a couple months ago, I was asking my guides, hey, do you guys need a name? Because I always talk about the guides and I don't give them a name. And people like names, right? Like Abraham or the Z's. Paul Selig just calls his the guides. Or Daryl Anka channels Bashar, right? So I was like, do I need a name? And the guide said no. They said, you don't need a name, but if you want a name, we'll give you one. And I received two names that are quite similar, the Violet Resonance and the Violet Harmonics. And that makes a lot of sense, because when I see my primary guide, he is always violet. That is the color that I see him as. So that was really beautiful and great. But the point was, the name was for me, right? Or sometimes the name is for you, for the audience, if people want to be able to say, oh, Abraham said that, or Bashar said that. Because in this human world, we have names and we have identities and individuated identities, and names are very sacred and important to us. Sometimes, too, the name can awaken a spirit or a soul connection, right? Like, so for example, I love working with Jesus or Joshua or Archangel Michael. Those are two guys, or Mother Mary. Those have been guides that I've been working with since I began this journey. And I feel real resonance and connection with them. And I'm also aware that they're guides and energies that I worked with in other bodies. Okay. And I actually have memories of Mary being in a body when she was in a body. So we'll find out if that's true later on, but it was a pretty potent and powerful memory. So those are energies that I feel a strong personal connection with. And so those names really help me, and those energies and those archetypal energies, it really helps me to tune in, because I feel that personal connection through that name. right? Sometimes a name too just gets our attention. It shows us where to look, right? So when I'm doing these spirit guide readings, oftentimes that name is something that will awaken a knowing in the receiver, right? When I give that name, they'll be like, oh, I thought of that. I've heard that name before, or oh, I know who that is, or oh, I resonate with that energy, or oh, I'm going to look that energy up, and wow, that was exactly what I needed to hear. So again, the message I get from the guides is the name is always for us, and you can hear it as you hear it, and it's highly personal too. Right. So my primary guide has a name that I often share with other people, but he also has a name that's just for me, and that's really special. So the name is for you. It may not be the name that they actually identify with, but it doesn't really matter because the point of connecting with your spirit guide is very much tuning in and finding that connection between you and them from your human perspective. All right, I'm going to take one more question, I think, and I think this will be a full episode. All right, Robin is asking, this one isn't going away. Can you explain the main guides and how they rotate? So this one I was kind of pondering as I pulled it out of my list, the main guides and how they rotate. And I think what she's asking for is sort of the different kinds of guides that can serve us and also how they change, right? And I think that's a really good question. And the first thing I want to say is the kinds of guides you have are, infinite. Really, there's so many different kinds of guides. And rather than thinking about different varieties or types of guides, though some people write about that. And again, if that resonates with you, go for it. Sonia Choquette has a great book about that. But for me, it's more about understanding that we can literally ask our guides for anything, and that they're all here with their own special sauce, attracted to us and attracted to earth because they want to support us, right? Some are helping us expand our awareness. Others are helping us to feel good. I often share the story about one time when I was first doing this work, I was also decorating a house. And I said, I need a decorator guide to help me find a lamp a chandelier, something that's going to work in my living room because I couldn't figure out what to do. And I saw a vision immediately of what I needed. And then the next day, I saw that in a magazine and I bought it and it was beautiful. Right. And that was only just because I made the request, hey, guide, support me. And the right energy showed up and made that happen. Right. So you can receive guidance on literally anything. Just ask. Just ask. And so I think it's not important to sort of know all the different kinds of guides. It's more a matter of just learning to know what you want and ask and know that they're here to support you every single time. Okay. And then the other question, how do they rotate? How do they change? It's my understanding that as our needs change, as we grow and as we expand, our guidance will change, right? Because we'll just need different things. Just like, I had a beautiful 30-year relationship with my ex-husband, and we did a lot of beautiful things together. But as we both grew and expanded as humans, we grew in different directions, right? And so we're no longer resonant as husband and wife, though I still count him among my very dear friends, right? And so it's like that with our guides too, right? We might outgrow a guide or no longer need that kind of guide or be in resonance with that energy. It doesn't mean they don't love us and we don't love them. It just means that we are ever expanding beings and our needs are going to change and evolve. So that's the first thing. The second part of it is our guides often grow and expand with us, especially those that are highly connected with us. So years ago, I remember having the sensation that as I made a big jump in my own personal and spiritual development, my guide made a jump too. And for a while, he seemed further away. He was like, oh, so far over there. And it took me a while to reestablish that connection and kind of catch up with him or just get back into synchronicity. Now, he was there all the time and he was supporting me all the time. But in that growth spurt, right, he also expanded and he also moved to like another level, is how it looked like to me at the time. And, so he was growing along with me. And I believe our guides do this too. And I'm getting the thumbs up on that one. All right, I'm going to try one more question and then we're going to wrap this one down. I hope you guys are enjoying this. And I hope some of you that were at the Conscious Life Expo are tuning in so that you can hear your answers. And friends, too, if you have a question for me that you'd like to hear on the show, please, 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 and more, please send me an email. Go to victoriashawintuitive.com. There's a contact form. I think my email is there as well. Send me an email, reach out, ask me your question, and I will do my very bestest to answer it on the show. So don't be shy about that one. It is my pleasure to do that for you. Okay. Personal questions, sometimes I can get to if it feels like a general reading. I've done a few of those on the show as well. But definitely your metaphysical and philosophical questions, or questions just about how do I connect with my intuition? How do I connect with my spirit guides? What's the meaning of life? Stuff like that. I'm happy to take a stab at that and ask the guides. All right. All right. Great question to end this one. The perennial question is, how do you know when it's your own voice or your spirit guide talking? And, we've addressed that question so many times on the show in so many different ways, but I want to tune back in now to see what the guides have to say about this one for today. And they're directing me to say, how do I know? Right. And I often say the kind of knowing that I have is not knowing definitively with my mind, right? It's not knowing the way that I can know, that this is a box because I can feel it and someone told me it's a box. But, my philosophical training reminds me that even that is limited. Okay. There are philosophers that pick apart even the idea that a rabbit is a rabbit. And how do we know a rabbit is a rabbit? And that would be Quine. But anyway, don't worry about that right now. But the deal is, the way I know my guides is a different kind of knowing. I feel it with my soul. I feel it with my body. I just know. My guides always make me feel good. Sometimes they're telling me what I don't want to hear. And so there might be a little reaction, but most of the time, I just feel delightful when I'm in their presence and I'm connecting with them. Sometimes I don't get it 100% right, and that's okay. I'm human. You're human. We can only do our best, but they say most of the time I get the gist, right? And that's more than enough. And part of connecting with your intuition and connecting with your spiritual support team is allowing yourself to trust in that connection and not try so very hard. Not try so very hard to trust, to listen, to play, to explore, to be curious, and to let go of this idea that you have to get it 100% right all the time. Now, some things that I'll tell you are not your spirit guides. If it's super aggrandizing of your ego, and if your guides are telling you you're the best at this, it's probably not your guides. They don't think that way, right? If they're telling you things that are fearful, it's also not your guides, because your guides live in a place beyond fear. They don't want to fear. They don't want to make you more scared. They want you to break free of all that, right? They want you to find love in every nuance and facet of your life and your being, because that's who they are. That's who you are. And that's what they're here for. So the messages of your guide will always be loving. They will never be fear-based. They will always be kind and supportive. They will often be surprising, right? Though sometimes they tell you what you already know. And they often be from that quiet place. But the only way to really know and build that relationship is just to start listening and exploring and trusting and believing. And that alone will open that pipeline. Remember, too, it's not always a voice. Sometimes it's a feeling of knowing, in your body, or it's a synchronicity or a sign or some wise words that come out of someone else's lips. Could be mine, could be someone else, but I hope they're mine. At least they're my words, at least some of the time. So it's not always a voice in your head, but when it is a voice in your head, it is usually calm and clear and sometimes very unexpected. And the way that you learn to discern is just to practice and play, and you'll know. Okay. And oftentimes, too, the guides are reminding me is that there are times when we just know, right? We may question it after the fact, but in that moment that we know, and we know that we know. And look for those moments. Look for those moments and give yourself some space and some grace around those, because those are the times when you're really connecting. Okay. All right. I think that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know how it flows. And I'm going to be doing two, I think, pretty soon, some group readings on the podcast. So stay tuned for those as well. And I'm going to be inviting listeners to join those because I love connecting with you guys. And although I am totally comfortable talking to air, and I know you're there, and I feel and love each and every one of you, it is sometimes too very nice to have that human connection. So send me an email, ask me your questions. And very most importantly, keep listening, like, subscribe, share, and know I love you. I'm grateful for you. And